All right, y'all. We are back yet again. It's your boy G and Alec for another great episode of Section 300. Appreciate y'all for tuning back in. And as you see, we're joined by another guest. We have our great friend of the show, as well as our Chargers Insider, Cory Kennedy, joining us today. Glad to have you on, bro.
Sweet, thank you guys. This is awesome. It's been awesome watching you guys over the last couple of years grow your podcast. I love Section 300. It's, it's an awesome thing, and so I'm super excited to be on the show. We've had Alec on the Dagger going back to last year, so it's great to be. I'm super excited for this, and so thanks for having me on, guys. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a whole lot we got to talk about, as we said. He's been working with the Chargers for a little while, and definitely a lot of things we're going to ask him about that. And there's a whole bunch of things going on in the NFL, as you guys have been watching. Trade deadline just passed and all of that. Another fun week of football is ahead as well, so we'll have our quick picks and all that ahead. So thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe to the show. Follow us on IG and TikTok at Section.300. Follow us on follow us on TikTok at Section Sports. Excuse me. All of socials all across the board. Follow us everywhere. Appreciate all the love, and we're gonna jump into it right now. All right, I'm excited about this. I'm very excited about this. So, Cory, I have a first question. So, as I said, you're a Chargers insider. I wanted to go here though first. Me and Alec have talked on the show on various weeks as the season has gone on about our fantasy teams. In our fantasy league, you're in it as well, and I know there's a couple of things. With your first pick, you took Cooper Kupp. In about the 9th round, you took former Rams legend Robert Woods. Later on in the draft as well, you took another Ram, Tyler Higbee. What went into you going on the other way and picking a bunch of Rams in our draft, though you work for the other side?
You got to spread the love. You got LA teams. You got to. But I mean, Cooper Kupp he was a guy that I passed on in drafts, just because with the ACL injury from years past.
Oh, the previous years.
And so I feel like I usually have bad luck with the draft picks and stuff like that. So I'll be drafting later in the round, so I don't get a chance to get the top 5 guys. This year I was top 4. I think it was top 4 or maybe even higher. And I was so Cooper Kupp was right there, and I was like, how do you can't pass on Cooper Kupp with the year that he had last year. So I'm like, him being healthy, and I'm like, you can't pass on a healthy Cooper Kupp. So especially, it seems like he's their main offense right there. So it's especially
Matthew Stafford loves to spam the ball to him for sure. So.
Absolutely. So that I always jump straight there because that was something I noticed. But going to the Chargers, what's it been like as you've been there and following them and covering them as you have for so long?
Yeah, definitely. It's been an awesome opportunity going back to last year, the 2021 season, now 2022 season. And it was something that I've always wanted to work for a team, and I was able to work in sports with different news stations, but I wasn't sure if it would be possible to work for a team.
Right.
It's such a tough industry. It's something you got to keep trying on, keep going, keep fine tuning your skills. And then when the opportunity happens, you jump into it. So I got super lucky. I got a chance to get brought onto the team with the editorial staff, work with the team reporters, and cover the team on Chargers.com on the team website, and be a part of their great social media team, video team, photo team. So shout out to all those people over there making some great content for them. But it's been that last season. It was what a roller coaster of a season with the historic or the crazy Week 18 Raiders game that was almost going to be a tie to get them in the playoffs. Right. So that game, and that was an away game, so I was covering it from home, and my hands were sweating, and I'm not even there in the stadium. So it's they're definitely an exciting brand of football to watch, and with all the moves they made this offseason, Justin Herbert, it's been awesome to see, and we're definitely seeing that the NFL is so unpredictable this year. So it's really it's tough to predict. You can add all these people in the offseason, but who knows what's going to happen when week 1 rolls around. So it's been definitely a roller coaster. Yeah. So roller coaster for sure.
Yeah. You touched on it being an exciting team to watch for sure. What's it like being on the sideline? Actually, the atmosphere down there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think SoFi is just such an incredible stadium. If I don't know if you guys got the chance to go check it out?
Yeah, yeah, I went to the
I
NFC
haven't yet,
Championship
actually.
game
Oh,
last
that's right. That is
year.
right. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, just the atmosphere alone, just when you walk into that stadium, it's like a gladiator pit. It's just you
Yeah,
have to go down. It's a confusing stadium to
yeah,
figure out because you have to go down down into the ground basically
right.
to get to the field level. And so it's a crazy stadium. You get down there on the field. It's a full on gladiator pit of just people. Noise, the music, the sound system there is crazy.
Yeah,
So it's
it's
just
all state of
incredible.
the art for sure, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we've got $1 billion, stadium, you got the Oculus, the big jumbotron up so it's something that I've never seen before, so that's just amazing. But as far as, like, on game day, I'm actually on the sideline just for before the game,
Okay,
and then I go up into the press box during the game.
okay.
And then when you're in the press box, it's kind of like almost like a fishbowl that
Mhm,
you can't hear it's glassed off, so you can't hear exactly how loud it is, but you definitely get a feel of the entertainment and the excitement and big play happens, the press box is shaking and everything. So it's definitely a sight to see. If you guys haven't got a chance to check it out, definitely recommend it.
And maybe I'm thinking too much, but is it distracting being in the press box? I feel like you're constantly trying to take note of every play and the things that are going on. What's it like in the press box during games?
Yeah, it's definitely everybody. I feel like everybody's locked in and focused because football is just one of those sports where you got to be looking at so many different things. Like there could be a game where you don't even see a certain player just with all the 22 guys on the field, and then you add in the stuff going on in special teams, all the storylines going on. So I feel like you have to really, especially my first season, it's like you're just digesting so much that's going on in
mhm,
the game. So it's like you definitely have to be locked in, focused. And yeah, I guess there is that temptation of there's all those fans out there having a crazy time going on, and so you kind of have to tune that out definitely, especially for the photographers on the field and
mhm.
social media people and videographers on the field. That's a whole different game. I feel like because
Yeah,
now you have the element of a player hitting a sideline catch and he's flying a 200-pound guy, 300-pound dude's flying your way. So
right.
there's that whole. I haven't experienced that. That's a different forte. I feel like, but
Yeah,
up in the press box, you're locked in. Everybody's going away. Almost like a classroom where everyone's going away on their notes
mhm,
and you're taking a lot of notes, making sure you don't miss the storylines
yeah.
and just be as sharp as you can, basically.
So do you
Gotcha.
kinda have, like, a couple stories prepared, like, depending on what happens, like, at the end of the game? Like, if they win or if they lose, what that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it depends on what media outlet you're looking for or you're working for. Somebody
Mhm,
like the AP or the Los Angeles Times, they'll have a story recap ready to go like as soon as
mhm,
the game ends. We also do like a game recap too, like it's a quarter by quarter, without any player quotes and stuff like that.
mhm,
So kind of like a little gamer recap. So we have that as a part of our coverage. But yeah, there's basically there while you're watching the games, you gotta okay, Khalil Mack's having a great game or Herbert's breaking a record or you're kind of just taking mental notes and also physical notes too of
mhm.
players you want because now this season too the locker rooms opened up too.
Okay.
So the
Yeah,
last 2 seasons no locker room access due to
with the
COVID,
COVID, yeah.
and so now it's like if it's a good game or a bad game, you gotta talk to these players right after the game. So when they're still sweating, they could be in their pads still, or they could have just changed and stuff like that. So it's like you have to be ready to face those players, whether it's for good or bad,
Right,
good or bad outcome of the game.
yeah.
So I think that's something you're always working on too, just making sure you got good questions going on, staying in tune with the game, stuff like that.
Did
Yeah.
you have a favorite player you like talking to in the locker room?
I would say, I mean, Eckler is always he's always super deep with his answers, and you can know that he's definitely there'd be some times where players maybe from different teams or in the NFL that are kind of shrug off answers and kind
Mhm,
of shrug off reporters. But I feel like Eckler, he's a guy going undrafted and just the opportunity that he has now, 20 touchdowns last year, he's at 10 touchdowns this year, and
Right.
so I mean it's an incredible story to watch. So I feel like he really is grateful and appreciates the opportunity that he's at now. So any question you could ask him how his day is going, and he'll go on a 5-minute answer on like what he's setting up as a player, his foundation, his what he wants to do after football. So he's very deep in his answers. So I would say definitely he's definitely a good one. And then Joey Bosa is one. He's always an
okay.
interesting, just at the elite level that he's played with, all the way from high school, college, pros, and just his family history. With Nick Bosa on the Niners, he's always an interesting interview for sure. Maybe definitely different style than Eckler, but there's always going to be a little bit of unpredictable, answers that might come out and for such an elite player. So that's always cool too.
Very cool. In the same kind of way, Bosa and Eckler are star level guys on that squad. Are there guys that are still rising, or there underrated guys on that squad that you can turn to and have good quotes as well? Like, who are some underrated guys on that Chargers squad right now?
I would say in the offseason, I got to interview Chris Rumph, the outside linebacker that was in that room with Joey Bosa and now Khalil Mack, Kyle Van Noy. So he's a really cool. He's a players coach too. His dad, I believe, coached for the Vikings and the Bears. So so he's very in tune with the scheme, where his improvement and stuff. He's only a second-year player out of Duke, so he'll give really insightful, and his personality is awesome too. So he's a player too that's trying to elevate his playing time, get better too as far in the outside linebacker room. I think that's something he did this offseason too. But he's still climbing the ranks of the football and on the football team. But guys like like Asante Samuel's always his former dad is Asante Samuel Sr., Patriots corner. Right. He's an awesome player to watch and to talk to after the games. So I would say those are always two good ones for sure.
Very cool, very cool. And the last one about the locker room, going back to the stars, most notably is a QB, Justin Herbert. From the outside, he seems very quiet. But talking with him, I saw you did a deep dive of him last year. Is he actually more of a expressive type guy than when he seems on camera?
Yeah, I would say the thing about Justin Herbert, I feel like he lives and breathes football. Like it's going to be pretty. You don't really see him at other games. You don't see him at other venues. There's not many sightings of Justin Herbert in the public. Right. So I feel like otherwise you'd probably see it on Twitter or something like that. But I really feel like he truly, when he says he loves football, loves watching film, I really think he does. He lives and breathes football, loves his teammates, loves his coaches and stuff like that. So I feel like maybe if people think he looks more quiet, maybe I think he's just focused. He's like super hyper focused, like seeing him in the locker room, seeing him in the facility. He's just, because he's still a young player. He's only on his third season. Right. And last year, he's got a whole new scheme that comes in, offensive coordinator, new head coach, and Brandon Staley. So maybe you might take it as being quiet, but he's the franchise guy, and he's only in his second year, and he's learning. He has to take on so much and learn so much. So I think that maybe from the outside perspective, it could seem as being quiet, but it's hard to compare him when you look at a guy like Tom Brady or even Phillip Rivers, former Chargers QB, because they've been in the league, they've been playing football for their almost their whole life and 10, 15 plus year careers. So it's like that's hard to compare those two, from a second year player to a 10-year player. So it's maybe that could be it too. But I think when you see him with his team and his teammates, it's all joy and happiness. But he is a little bit shy, camera shy a little bit. Like you saw in the last game against the Falcons, the field camera got close to him, and he kind of like pushed it away. He was kind of like,
"Oh, really?"
He bumped into. He was like, "Hey, what's going on?"
It was kind of just like, "Hey, I think he just wants to win the game. He's ultra focused, and he's like, I don't want the spotlight on me, but I want to go win the game," type of thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, the way you describe him kind of sounds like. Oh, go for it. What did you say?
The last thing I'll say is he seems very quiet and it's all about the game. I have seen him do some commercials recently, though. Have people been on him about the commercials he started doing?
Oh yeah, I think he's got Chipotle. He's got a couple of shampoos. He's got I think even like Amazon Prime before the season. Like he's all over. I think he did a couple of SoFi things too. So yeah, I think that's been. I feel like a lot of people haven't talked about that too. So that's a good point. He's definitely making those like commercial rounds. But I think. Yeah, I don't know if that's his agent or what, but I know, he's definitely. I've seen like in his locker room too. He's got that shampoo. A couple of players have got the shampoo that he. I think it's like Dr. Sasquatch or something.
They got Melly cut his hair a while back. I saw. So yeah, he had to let that hair grow back out.
Yeah. So that's pretty good. Yeah, definitely. I think. Well, you can definitely tell he's a young star, rising star. In the LA market, it's big things are definitely in store for him for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say the way you were describing him kind of sounded like Kawhi, minus the youth, but kind of sounded like Kawhi-like tendencies as far as kind of being a recluse and quiet on the quieter side and just focused on the ball, like board man gets paid, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I see what you get there.
What?
Yeah, No, I can see
Clipper comparison. I see what's going on. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead, Corey.
I think the only thing with Kawhi, and I haven't seen him in like a locker room setting or like in the facility, but I feel like Kawhi maybe just has that one personality, like all the time, kind of a robot machine-esque of like, okay, won the game, beat the other team type of stuff, get your job done. Or maybe I feel like Herbert has a little bit more of a personality going on, so you can kind of do
robot.
You can kind of dual personality a little bit, where he's on his team mode, hyping up his team. Because you'll see him like when our video team goes behind the scenes and they'll do the locker room victory speeches. He's like all rah and hyping up with his teammates. Last year he gave a game ball to Coach Staley for his first win as a head coach. So you can see there's definitely that. Maybe he just feels more comfortable around his teammate, and when you have a camera in front of his face, it could change up a little bit. But I think that'll all kind of fade off away as he gets older and stuff like that, and just gets used to. He's a small town kid from Eugene, Oregon, too, so that could play into it too. Right. And he wasn't always like the most highly recruited athlete going into Oregon. I think he only had a couple offers, and Oregon being one of them. Right. So he didn't have that huge spotlight, that you might see from other players that are going to Georgia, Alabama. They get followed as a high school, from these local high schools like Mater Dei, St. John Bosco, or like Bishop Gorman, all that stuff. Like he didn't have that huge exposure. So that could be, and now he just got kind of catapulted into superstardom. So that could be it too. A little bit of a factor into that.
Yeah. Very cool. Now G had a question on here, and I had the same thing essentially. From within the organization, how real is this Chargers curse? Like, what's going on with the Chargers in these close games, losing close games, coming up just a little bit short?
Always
the high expectations for this year, and they're still on track to make the playoffs, but it's been a little bit of an uneven season so far. So what's this Chargers curse? Where did it come from? How real does it feel on the inside?
I definitely try. I think you see it the most with the Charger fan base, like the OG Charger fans going back to the 70s and 60s and 70s when this team was first getting, going into the NFL and stuff like that. So I feel like if you've been following that team all the way from then, to the early 2000s all the way through, I think you definitely feel it with the fan base when games get close. They're sweating. They're kind of like they're calling for everybody to be fired, and it's like okay, kind of pump the brakes, but I guess it makes sense if you have a team that is quote unquote cursed. I could see where people can get kind of panicked. But I think with Brandon Staley coming in last year, it seemed like he talked about it a lot, and a lot of players too. Herbert and Bosa talked about like that there's a culture change with this new coaching staff. Going to go out and be aggressive, make moves in the offseason, so they don't have those last second game losing field goals, crazy touchdowns, Hail Mary touchdowns, because those are just heartbreakers. That'll just deflate a season if you get so close and you end up losing like that. So there's definitely you could see it in the NFL and other sports too. There's teams where that just seems to happen, and it seems like the Chargers are starting to rewrite that narrative a little bit. Especially with this season too, they've had a ton of close games where they've been able to come out, and they had 2 game-winning field goals this season.
Yeah.
So I mean, their record very well could be flipped to 3-5, or even worse. But they've been able to pull out some games where they were down, they came back. So I think maybe with Brandon Staley, kind of the new regime coming in, like new coaches coming in, although it's the same ownership, it seems like there's a little bit of a change, like in that curse, I guess, so to speak. But unfortunately, the injury bug has been the curse this year. It's been that's just been insane to watch.
Every year.
I gotta say it because I've at least watched somewhat over the years, and that injury bug has always been there. To Alex's question about the curse, that's been the biggest thing. Really, they always find a way to get somebody hurt at the worst time. They had a lineman go down, I believe. Keenan Allen's been in and out the lineup. Why can't guys just stay on the field over there?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, J.C. Jackson. That was a crazy freak injury. He goes up against the Seahawks, tries to high point the ball, and then his patellar tendon just ruptures. And it's like, how do you even? I mean, I don't know if you could see that before. If there's any, I don't know if there's any sign. He definitely he had that ankle surgery a couple weeks before the season started, but that was supposed to correct something that wasn't a big deal. But he just never. He looked great in training camp, like out at Costa Mesa in the training camp. Throughout those weeks, and he looked great, and he was when the Cowboys came over to the joint practice, he was locking down receivers and he looked great. But when after he had the ankle surgery, he wasn't able to he didn't look comfortable and he just didn't look like his Instagram name is Mr. INT. Most interceptions in the last couple since 2018 from a DB. So he unfortunately never got to that level, that Mr. INT level that everyone was hoping for.
Right.
And it seems like there's a couple factors that went into that. Maybe the scheme, maybe a new team, and maybe the injury. And I don't know if the knee was bothering him at all. There was no report on that, but it's great. It's just a freak accident for sure. But maybe to answer the question on the injury thing, it almost seems like SoFi has had a little bit of trouble because the Rams have been banged up, the Chargers have been banged up, and there's a lot of talks about turf and real grass. But I mean, it seems like it's a hard one to pin down. There's probably a lot of factors that go into the injury bug stuff. But I don't know. It's definitely a tough question that one we are not for sure of asking the players and coaches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's one more. I take a step back then in regards to the curses or however people want to describe from the outside. How much is that felt within the organization? Do people feel within the organization that there's a curse with the team? Do they feel like there's stuff that holds them back, or is that just all outside noise that just gets ignored from within?
Yeah, I think a big thing on NFL teams is it's all about this year and what's happening this year too. Because it's hard if you look back on. I mean, even if you look at this season too, so many rosters change and they change in the offseason, in the draft, and at the trade deadline too. So even like I remember going into week 1 against the Chargers, it was Chargers Raiders. It was like, okay, hype this up, like week 18 rematch. But it's like a lot of the team has changed. Like the Raiders have gone through 2 head coaches. They got a whole new scheme, a whole new staff. Maybe there's a couple players, Derek Carr. There's still player Josh Jacobs that were still on the team going head to head with those Chargers players. But the Chargers roster is brand new. Raiders were kind of revamped their roster too. And so I think a lot like talking with players, and there also too with the Chargers roster, there's only a couple guys that have been there for a super long time. With maybe like Derwin, Mike Williams, Bosa is probably the most veteran guy on the team, and Keenan Allen. So there's only like 4 guys really that have been there for a long time too. So it's almost like that's kind of why it feels like it's a new era, a new start where you kind of change the whole roster and new head coaches, and you kind of have a whole different football team. So yeah.
Got you. So yeah, that was just something interesting that I saw. Yeah. I guess the last thing in that same regard, I guess from the outside again, there's been a lot of people already questioning the play calling and just the capability of Coach Staley there. From inside, is there full confidence in him that he's going to get these guys back into the top tiers people believe that they would be?
Yeah, no, I think it's like the first year. I feel like head coach Brandon Staley's first year, it was like, okay, he's being super aggressive. The 4th down was a big topic, and I think going into the second year, it's like, okay, cool, second year, let's get bigger and better and faster and everything with everything going on. But that only lasted for only really 1 week. And week 2, you have the Chiefs and going against the Chiefs, and you take a loss, which is bad, but also Herbert gets hit in the ribs. He faces pressure, gets hit, and lands awkwardly right into a helmet of a Chiefs defender. So it really, the honeymoon phase kind of only lasted for that second week, or going into week 2, and then Herbert has been dealing with that rib injury, the fractured rib cartilage, ever since. And I think that did limit the play calling a little bit too. I think overall, just the injuries, only having Keenan Allen for week 1, and then the first half against the Broncos or against the Seahawks. That definitely limits, like on 3rd down, he's your money guy. He's your go-to guy. In the red zone, he's your go-to guy with Herbert. Kind of like that Mahomes and Kelsey, Tyreek Hill magic is a little bit Herbert Keenan magic is you lose that too. So I think there's a little bit that I think the play calling could definitely be criticized too. I think there was a lot of dump offs, a lot of check downs to Eckler. 1 week he had 16 targets. The next week he had 12 targets, 12 receptions. So just dumping it down to Eckler, you can't sustain that for forever. You can't get huge plays off that. So especially with a guy like Herbert with a cannon that can throw the ball 50, 60 yards down the field, people were definitely, I think it was definitely right to criticize why that play calling wasn't there. But I think you have to factor in the players being hurt and not having your full starting roster on offense and defense too. And then who knows we never know exactly how much his ribs were affecting him. If he was able, he definitely, I think he coming out of the bye week against Atlanta, it was definitely, he looked the most comfortable he's been since week 2. I feel like being able to step up in the pocket, make throws, go through his progression and not have to just dump it down. So I think, I think we'll see that kind of develop as guys get better health wise.
Looking forward to that. The last thing I'll ask, I think I already said that, but I'll ask one more. In regards to injuries, as you pointed out, how does that work with guys like Keenan Allen, who we see, he's possibly going to return, and then, never mind. And he's possibly going to return this week, and then never mind. What's going on in that process that leads them to kind of sway as they do with their reports?
Hamstrings are tricky. I know that.
I know that. I'm just saying from inside, if you've been following it, how is that sway really taking place?
Yeah, it seemed like so. Yeah, I guess when you look at it, like if they would have known he had been out for so long, it almost be like it almost seemed like an injury to go on the IR and miss those 4 games, at least minimum 4 games. But I think it was just it was almost like a freak. It's kind of a nagging hamstring where it happens week 1, and they're like, okay, cool. I think he should be good by for a couple weeks, miss a couple weeks, and so he doesn't have to go on IR. But then you keep missing week and week and week and week after week. Right. And you're like, oh shoot, is he just re-aggravating? Is it not healing as it wanted to? So I think that part gets definitely tricky. And because we won't know, he's on the injury report, but we don't know exactly how big of a strain it was, how much it's bothering him. And I think when Keenan came back against Seattle, the plan was to be on a pitch count, and wasn't sure if it was going to be on third down, red zone packages and stuff like that. But it turned out he played the first half, but didn't play the second half. So it seemed like maybe he might have re-aggravated something. And then going into the bye week, he actually re-aggravated it again. So there was a report that he re-aggravated his hamstring when the team came back this last week. And he said that during his workouts, he re-aggravated it. So it's like, it seems like he just can't catch a break. But it seems like it's getting there and then boom, regress. Getting there, regress. So it's like, it seemed like maybe that's why he didn't go on. Didn't seem like a bigger injury. It was just a tiny a nagging injury that just keeps regressing. And at this point, it's like, who knows? I think Coach Staley said he's day to day. And so it's just kind of one of those evolving. It's going to, I guess, take some time. But hopefully for Chargers fans, for the Chargers in general, to get him back as soon as possible, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, you can go ahead. My bad.
Sure. Just with what all you've said, do you feel like Staley is on the hot seat at all, or do you feel like that is more just outside noise?
Yeah, I think I think this game against Atlanta was a huge game. Like, I think it was a way to come out of the bye week and bounce back after that tough Seahawks loss. Because they've had that tough loss against the Jaguars and the brutal loss against the Seahawks, where people are trying to question, like, Staley as a head coach, the play calling, the schemes, are they working out? Were these offseason moves, do they work out? Like, what's going on? Like, why are all these injuries happening? So I think that question pot is getting stirred. And I think that's when head coaches get in trouble. It's like, okay, all these questions are coming up. Like, it's like, what's going on? So I think from the outside, that's when things start to swirl, and the outside media starts to panic and go on shows and make big takes about that. But I think it was huge to win against Atlanta, because if they went out and they were down 10-0, and it's like, oh shoot, another slow start. What's going on? Is it the players? Is it the coaches? Like, what's going on with this? And then Eckler gets those 2 touchdowns, and it's like, boom, okay, now they're back in it. And so I think this week was a huge start to kind of right the ship and hopefully get guys back, get the scheme going, get Herbert more comfortable. So I think that'll definitely happen. And still to have a 5-3 record with all these injuries, I think is a big thing.
Yeah.
So I think
kind of on track,
yeah. So I think, and 2 coaches have been already been fired this season, with Frank Reich a couple days ago and Matt Rule, and both their teams in that like 2-5 or 3-5 range, 2-6. Right. So maybe if the Chargers were in that like 2-6 range, coming after this week, I think that hot seat would for sure be there. But I think to be 5-3, just 1 game back from the Chiefs, still in the wild card playoff in the playoff picture, I think it definitely, and I guess with Staley too only being there for 1 year, I think it's hard, especially for the ownership and for Tom Telesco, to be like, okay, we're done. So I think, but it's definitely right for fans to get nervous. But I think this one was a huge win, and now they got 2 big matchups on Sunday Night Football too. Niners this week,
Right.
and then Chiefs. So it's like if they can win these next 2 games, it's like, okay, we got a whole new conversation. It's like, wow. So this will really test them. As long as there's no more injuries, I mean, I think it's
I don't
like
know if you can count on that, but yeah.
I don't know. It's like they got to get healthy fast and just improve that. But I think that Staley made a couple good adjustments. Not at first quarter they came out pretty rough, but into that second half they kind of fine tuned some stuff and I think on defense and offense and Herbert was able to connect with Palmer and get the win. So just by 3 points, and I guess it's not a pretty win, but it gets the job done. Gets you
a win to win though.
Yeah, a win to win, and so definitely they're definitely tough wins, but you get the win, you get in the win column, and boom, 5-3. So yeah.
So with that,
go ahead.
So with that, do you see them as a potential playoff team? Like, do you think they will make the playoffs?
Yeah, it seemed like this year had to be playoff or bust with all the moves they made, the Khalil Mack and all the moves they made. J.C. Jackson, unfortunately, not season-ending injury, but it seemed like it had to be playoff or bust. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like they definitely are still in that spot to get there. But I think if these injuries keep happening, it's definitely realistic to say, shoot, they might miss the playoffs. But mm-hmm. So I think it seems like it'll come down just to the injury, which is pretty crazy because you don't really have control of that. It's like anything can happen, especially in a sport like football. But I think this team still could win, get into that 10-11 game. And while then it's going to be tough to win the AFC West with the number of injuries they have. Mm-hmm. It's looking like they're going to get they could get Joey Bosa back either mid-November or mid-December. So they could get some guys back. If you get Keenan back, you get Mike Williams back, get Bosa back. It's like, okay, now we're adding to our team now. It's almost like you're making off-season moves. Like you're just adding guys back in. And I think you could go on a run late. This is a huge, huge month of football right here, mid-November, mid-December. So I think, to answer that question, I think they definitely can still be a playoff team. I guess it just comes down to injury. If they can win these next 2 games and put them in a good spot and be, either 6-3, 6-3, 6-4, like in that range, and just hang in that playoff picture.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a fun one. I'm very excited for the next few games. You mentioned this upcoming Sunday. The game was originally, I think, was a 10 a.m. game, but they flexed it to Sunday night, which I'm very excited for because that game versus the Niners is going to be a big one. In that same way, have you covered any Sunday night games, Monday night type games, and where are those primetime games like?
Oh yeah, that one game during our fantasy basketball draft, right?
Oh yeah, I did have when Chargers were playing the Broncos Monday Night Football. Yeah. It was a day. The next day was the start of the NBA season, so I had to get the fantasy drafts going. But so I had to hit the auto draft because that game was went into overtime too, 19 wins. So it's like those Monday night games. I know that like the players. Some players say it doesn't matter what time we're playing, but you can definitely feel it. Like I walked out, got off the elevator. I could walk by Troy Aikman. And you're just like, and you see like Mark Sanchez was there, all the ESPN crew with RG3, Adam Schefter, even Larry Fitzgerald was there. So it's like you see the ESPN crew, you see the bright lights, and I think there's something special too about when it gets dark. It gets dark outside. SoFi Stadium can really light up the stadium and can just pump in the crowd, pump up the crowd, pump up the lights and all the pregame festivities and all that stuff. So I think Monday Night Football is definitely awesome. Especially just growing up a football fan. And then so Sunday Night Football is special too. Like when they played the Carrie Underwood song like again last year against the Steelers.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's all like it's like it's almost like you usually see that on TV, but when you're there in person, it's just awesome to see all the people there, the crowd, sold out crowd. When a big play happens, the stadium's shaking. It's just like it's definitely cool to see. All NFL games are exciting, but when you get on that Sunday night game, Monday night game, even Thursday too. The Thursday game last year against the Chiefs, that was crazy too. So you can really, I feel like the energy is cranked up. Couple more notches for sure on those prime times.
You mentioned like the sold out crowds and stuff. The fan engagement is something that me and G have kind of talked about for the LA football teams because both of them kind of being transplant teams in a way. What do you think it would take kind of for the Chargers to establish themselves as like LA's football team?
Yeah, no, I think winning, obviously winning solves everything, but I think there's a little bit it's tricky too because obviously the Rams winning the Super Bowl last year, and it's
Right.
like people were thinking, okay, Rams they might corner the market, the LA football base, but then it's like NFL not for long, so it's like boom, Rams they go Super Bowl champs to now struggling to put together a winning team, and it's
Right.
like wow, just one season, boom, can change like that. So I
Yeah.
think obviously winning Super Bowls definitely help you. But I think
Mhm.
just building a really solid team, really solid roster around, young draft picks, coaches that are going to be there for a long time. I think it definitely it definitely helps. But yeah, it's like you saw with the Rams, like the Niners took over the Rams stadium.
Mhm.
There's
Yep.
definitely been games where half the stadium's been other teams are their other fan bases there.
Right.
But it's definitely I think now that the Chargers have been in LA for a couple of years, it's definitely like looking at training camp, there was a huge it was packed. It was with all the excitement around the team, packed stands over in Costa Mesa. So, but I know G's ready to say it. He's ready to jump in.
No. I was just gonna say we had Matt on recently, had a discussion about whether you'd rather have a team win a Super Bowl or just have a consistent winner. And I
Mhm.
think your answer to what you just said, I'm kind of answer that same kind of thing we discussed. Alex, you'd rather invest in one Super Bowl, and rather than going for the future. And while I was more so about the team, I think for a fan base and things, as you said, not the NFL being not for long, having the
Yeah,
Chargers have a more successful team, whether they win a Super Bowl or not, just being a team that puts better product out, I think that will attract fans over
Yeah.
time. They could establish themselves. So
yeah,
I start smiling because Alec went the other way in the question. And I'm like, I'm trying to show, I'm showing you that he's saying what I was trying to say in a better way. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought that point up, and I'm excited to see if the Chargers can maybe switch sides. I got the Rams hat on right now.
oh
Maybe
yeah,
switch sides and put the Chargers gear on going forward. So excited about that, all of that. In the
yeah.
same way I asked about Sunday Night Football and favorite games you've covered, while you are there for games, you're there beyond that as well. You have a favorite non-football Charger moment you remember, like just being around for some kind of other event that was just fun to be there for?
Yeah, I think in the off season, well, I think I guess kind of a two-part thing. So in the when the Super Bowl being in LA this past season,
Right.
we got to go cover the Radio Row out there by the LA Convention Center. So that
Mhm.
was awesome to go out and talk to football personalities, media personalities from NFL Network. I got the chance to interview Kurt Warner, and Maurice Jones-Drew. So that was really cool to meet those guys.
UCLA
And
legend.
yeah, UCLA legend. Yeah, yeah. So
Whatever.
and it's awesome to see. It's awesome. And then Pat McAfee was there. He was hosting a show there the whole week. So that was really cool. Just even though the Chargers weren't in the Super Bowl, it was awesome to see like all the personalities there and ask them about Chargers football and kind of the Battle of LA, so to speak. So that was one too. And then in the off season, the Chargers had a team golf tournament for charity too for
Okay.
their like Chargers Impact Fund. So I got to go out and hop on the golf cart with one of the team photographers. And so shout out to Ty. It's one of that's one of the team photographers. She says, if you guys are into photography, like sports photography, follow
Okay.
those guys. They're awesome at all the
Got you.
stuff they do.
Okay.
And so I got to ride around the golf cart, see players and members of charities and stuff like that. And they had like food set up at every every hole on the golf course, and got to interview players about what it means to give back and the impact fund they have there at the Chargers. So
Yeah.
that was super fun too. So all the cool events they put together too, for sure.
Cool.
Very, very cool. Very cool.
I got
Go ahead.
I got another football question.
Yeah.
Going back to the field, so we kind of had this discussion for a while. Not really an argument because we're kind of on similar sides, but
Yeah.
what do you think, Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert?
Oh, that's a good one. I feel like we can always group Joe Burrow, Tua, and Herbert together
Yeah,
in a
we're not talking about Tua though. We're not talking about Tua.
oh yeah. No, I think if you look, that's a tough one because you
It
also
is.
have to have the roster around them. I think
Mhm.
this season's showing that you can't just make like one or two moves. You gotta build a whole roster out from offense, defense, special teams, all three aspects of the game. So it's like it is hard. Like if you lose all your top players, then it's tough. And then if you like Joe Mixon just went off for the Bengals too. So it's like
Went
it's
crazy.
it's definitely hard to judge, but I would say just from the talent, the arm strength, just the type of player. I mean, you can't really go wrong with either one. but I would probably lean a little bit to Herbert just with his like. I would just have to.
That's a smart answer.
Exactly.
You can say I'm a little biased too, but I just feel like just the way like being 6'6", like 240, like can toss the ball down the field with ease.
He's got the measurables as
yeah, he's got the
measurables.
Yeah, now I feel like you probably honestly can't go wrong with either of those guys, but it's like, and I feel like they're both made up with the same type of stuff, just like the quarterback skills they have, arm strength, all the stuff they have, like it's pretty hard to beat, and just the maturity that they have too to be super young guys, early 20s, and leading franchises in 2 different parts of the world or the country. So yeah, I would just say Herbert. Yeah, Herbert's pretty crazy. Some of the throws he makes are just insane. Like you have no idea. It's crazy. You have no idea how he makes it. And Joe Burrow also, his connection with Jamar Chase is amazing too. I just feel like the way that Herbert can move around the field, use his legs to just like the speed he has on the ball when he rips it down. So I would say Herbert, but I think those guys, obviously Burrow has a Super Bowl appearance already.
Yeah.
So it's like he's starting to stack the resume up a little bit more. So it's just, I think it's just a matter of seeing those guys in the playoffs and seeing, kind of like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, their AFC battles. This could kind of be the new AFC matchup, AFC battles. Definitely, if you're a football fan, any team, it's like you gonna watch these guys too, for sure.
Got you. I know we're running out of time, so the last 2 questions I had, one is, as a Clipper fan, what are your thoughts on this season so far? How far you think they're going to go? Just any thoughts on the Clippers as they go on this year?
Yeah, well, obviously big game tonight too against the Clippers Lakers, so that'll be a fun one to watch. But I think, definitely a little nerve-wracking for Clippers fans, and especially like Kawhi fans too. It's like he missed an entire season. It's like, okay, cool, he's good to go this season, should be good to go. Like there's rumors that he would even come back in the playoffs last year if he made a big run, but it's like, shoot, I think he's missed 8 games now or 7. I think he's gonna miss his 8 games.
I've only seen him play in like 1.
Maybe it's just been the first game, the Lakers game, I think. And he's got the inflammation on the surgically repaired knee. So it's like, and I feel like he's the king of load management too. So that maybe that doesn't help too. That he's definitely going to come back.
Started it, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like he's definitely gonna be a guy that's gonna be careful with that and maybe not rush something back when maybe other players would too.
He doesn't rush anything. He's gonna take his time.
Yeah, he's definitely gonna take his time. Yeah. But I feel like they got the big win. I think it was against the Cavaliers on either Sunday or Monday on Monday. So that was good. Get a little comeback to kind of boost up their chances for this game tonight. But I still think it's definitely a work in progress. You expect them to be in the top like 5 in the West, but right now it's like, shoot, I think they need to get Kawhi back, and they need to kind of play a little bit better, and the West is going to be tough, and just the NBA in general is going to be tough too. So and like I feel like the Jazz have been balling out too. So it's like the Lauri Markkanen, U of A product. So it's like it's going to be tough for sure to be in that top 5 of the West, especially without Kawhi. It's like if you put Kawhi in there, it's like, okay, cool. I think I can see him in the top 5, but they might be struggling for the play-in again this year too. So
yeah, the West is bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So excited to see how that goes for the Clippers, for the Lakers, everybody. The NBA definitely in a good spot this year. I'm excited for it all. The last question I had is that I saw you played lacrosse in college, and definitely envious of you in that regard. I guess my one sports regret was that I didn't stick with lacrosse. The 1 year I played, I still got my stick to this day.
I didn't even realize you played lacrosse. That's funny.
I played 1 year in high school just for fun. We started a new team at the school I was at, and they brought all the football guys over to play. So I went and joined them, and it was fun, but I didn't stick with it when I should have. But definitely have always loved the sport and followed it a little bit to this day. And in that same way, do you watch the pro lacrosse at all, and have you still stuck around the sport in any kind of way?
Yeah, I got to playing in high school, and then I feel like also too like that's awesome. You play lacrosse. I had no idea, and I feel like some of the best guys. I feel like some of the best guys like translating sports with football guys. They would come over and play lacrosse because they obviously know how to hit at a different level too. So like those guys, the football guys that played lacrosse were always the biggest hitters too. So that was always awesome to have guys like that. And so so I got to play U of A team, our club team with Taylor too. So that was a good time. Now I just, now I'm kind of, I just play in alumni games when I can. But, but yeah, so, but I know like a couple places they have leagues like men's leagues and stuff like that. But so I definitely want to get involved in one of those too. But, but I do watch, like PLL has been awesome with Paul Rabel and what he's done with that. Right. And if you guys, there's a documentary called like Fate of a Sport that the ESPN did on him, and just how he was able to get guys from the Major League Lacrosse and go over to the Premier League Lacrosse, the PLL. Right. So it's cool to see how he kind of organized that with him and his brother, how he got the NBC deal, how he got the ESPN deal now. And so that it's awesome what he's doing for the sport, like more exposure. Now you're seeing more and more high schools get teams here on the West Coast. Because my senior year, a couple of teams in our league, they didn't have teams, but now they're starting to get teams too. So it's cool it's definitely cool to see the growth of that sport and kind of how it pairs with football and lacrosse too. So that's always good too.
Very much so. Very, very much a fun sport. Excited to see it continue to grow, especially on the West Coast, and excited for all of that. So I know we're out of time. Alec, you have one more question. You can ask him that, and then we'll let him go do his thing.
No, I don't think I have anything else. I think we pretty much covered it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Then Cory, we really appreciate you for joining us, man. We really appreciate the time, all the insight you gave us on the Chargers and what you do with them and all that you have going on. Really appreciate all of that. So make sure you follow him online everywhere. We'll have all his socials. I'm tagged in the description below. And again, appreciate everybody for tuning in. So thank you, Cory, again for joining us. Appreciate all the love. For you guys watching, thank you for tuning in for another episode. Follow us online, IG and TikTok at section.300. Follow us on Twitter at 600 Sports. It's your boy G with Alec and Cory. Another episode in the books, man. We'll see y'all later. Peace.
Deuces.